So this chapter is absolutely crazy, and whatever you were expecting to happen in this one is probably going to meet your expectations and maybe even surpass them. Like, I seriously cannot wait for the full release of this chapter because some seriously fantastic stuff is going down in this one. But before I get into it, let me just catch you up to how we got to this point because that's kind of important. So in the previous chapter, we saw Kashimo just straight up annihilating Panda. We actually saw this for like the last two chapters. And while 3/4 of the previous chapter was like this internal fantasy sequence of Panda and his siblings and him letting them go because their cores were seemingly destroyed by Kashimo, while Panda of course is still alive since we saw him talking at the end of the previous chapter despite him just being ahead, at the very end Hikari showed up to save the day, which showed us that yeah, we're gonna get Kashimo versus Hikari, which is like a seriously awesome big hyped up match, and in this chapter it seems to be living up to that hype. So the chapter continues with Hikari fighting off Kashimo. After fighting each other for a bit, Hikari's body accumulates an electric charge that Kashimo discharges and blows Hikari's left arm off. So we saw this ability introduced in chapter 184. Kashimo can like manipulate their cursed energy and essentially just turn it into electricity. But it specifically said Kashimo separates the cursed energy's charges like electricity. When striking an opponent, a positive charge is transferred, and the negative charge in Kashimo is discharged to the target without losing any electricity towards the ground. This results in a lightning that rends the air and can't miss without the need to cast a domain. And we saw that when Kashimo originally did this to Panda's sister form, it straight up like exploded. So it's understandable that this is like taking off Hikari's arm. However, going further, Hikari is able to continue to use his right arm to attack and defend his left arm, which should have been blown off with that, but it shows that when Hikari hits the jackpot, he is able to get infinite cursed energy. Okay, so this is like what's going on right now. This was also like the big thing about Hikari's domain. It all essentially revolved around him getting the jackpot. Because I explained this in my chapter 183 video, but Hikari's domain, and I guess his curse technique to a lesser extent, just revolves around like a jujutsu version of a patchy slot machine. It's like a Japanese arcade game mixed with like a slot machine. And in order for Hikari to get the jackpot, he needed to get 3 matches. And at the end of chapter 183, we saw that he got those 3 matches. He got number 3 of the Yumi characters, and that's where the chapter ended, with him like kicking Charles in the face, which I guess defeated him because he's here now. But also we saw in the final panel of chapter 183 that Hikari had that intense cursed energy emanating from him, which lines up with the intense cursed energy that we saw coming from him at the end of 185 when he came to save Panda. So I guess this means that he's still riding off of the jackpot that he got against Charles, and that massive DBZ-esque aura coming off of him is infinite cursed energy. That's like what his jackpot is. Oh my god. I mean, stuff like this is only theoretical in Jujutsu Kaisen. When he hits that jackpot, he basically becomes immortal, which is what saved him from Kashimo's attack. And since he has infinite cursed energy, he is also able to execute his domain expansion as much as he wants, but only if he is able to keep hitting that jackpot. So this is incredible. But let's go over to Miyamura's spoilers because he explains just a little bit more about this, because this just makes it seem like unredeemably broken, which it's not, but it's approaching that. So the bonus for hitting the jackpot is Restless Gambler. It's infinite and continuous supply of curse energy for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. So there is like a time limit to it. It's not just like you get it until you win, but 4 minutes and 11 seconds in Jujutsu Kaisen world may as well just be until you win. Even if Hikari cannot use reverse curse technique, the infinite cursed energy will restore the body on its own. So he's like Zamasu from Dragon Ball Super at this point. I think this finally makes sense of what Hakotsu was saying in chapter 146 about Hikari, when he said, but when he gets worked up, he's stronger than I am. Because while Hakotsu is incredible and clearly one of the strongest characters in the series, especially since we saw him coming off of the gauntlet, going against 4 sorcerers who maybe are as strong as Kashimo or around that level, it's up in the air at this point. There's no way to know for sure. But the story has heavily implied that they're all like special grade for sure. So I wonder if Akotsu has seen this or is aware of it, because this is, like I said, almost broken. But I'd really like to see the full application of this, because he could just keep using his domain, as it says, but he has to keep hitting the jackpot, which seems likely because of all of the chance boosters and the luck multiplier things that he gets within it. But I also don't think it's going to be that easy. Yes, in this chapter it seems like he's pretty much guaranteed to win at this point, but it's never really that simple, is it? I mean, with Akotsu there was, you know, back and forth there, the stakes did raise, but he essentially did get the job done when the odds were against him. But is it going to be the same with Hikari here? Because Kashimo has been, I guess, the most set up villain in the culling game at this point, besides Kenjaku. And he does have like some real motivations here, which is going after Sukuna. And I'm assuming that we still need to figure out what's going on with that. But depending on what happens here, this could also go into the trend of these big villain or antagonist as characters being introduced, and then one of them winds up living or just continuing on into the story as almost like an ally. Because we've seen that happen so far with Yuji, Megumi, and Akotsu. So either Charles is the one that got left alive by Hikari and he's gonna be like a begrudging ally or whatever, or it's gonna be Kashimo here. Like, I don't know, Hikari gives Kashimo the big challenge or big fight that they've been looking for, similar to what was going on with Ryu and Akotsu maybe. And then Kashimo, I don't know, spills the beans and tells them what's going on with Sukuna or what deal that he made with Kenjaku or whatever. And then this leads to Kashimo meeting Yuji possibly, because it's likely that that could happen. Now, how could it happen? Well, I'm assuming that there's eventually going to be a rule made that allows travel between the colonies, because that's what Akotsu was talking about. And Akotsu at this point can make two, depending on if Gege is going to retcon that chapter where he said that Akotsu had 200 points, even though he technically was supposed to have like 190 or something. But also, we still don't know what Kashimo's curse technique is. So that could be the big foil here for Hikari. Like, it seems like Hikari is going to win, and that the odds are just so incredibly stacked against Kashimo that we begin to think like, oh, he's just here to lose to Hikari to establish how much of a powerhouse he is. But then maybe the reverse Uno card gets played and Kashimo's curse technique somehow favors him in this matchup somehow, or it allows the time to run out, because that could also be a factor here. Like, the 4 minutes and 11 seconds somehow runs out and then Hikari's pretty much done after that point. Not really sure, but let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments. Oh man, this one is so exciting. I just really can't wait to see the full chapter, but let me know what you think about it in the comments. And if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like, please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you next one.